My ex-wife became a CFO and her spouse looked down on me, so I pulled my $680 million investment. I didn't want to go. I told myself I'd show up for half an hour, shake a few hands, pretend I gave a shit, and leave before anyone remembered I was there. But I stood in front of the mirror longer than usual, tightening my tie like it mattered, like this was still a room I belonged in. The suit I wore was tailored, midnight blue with a faint pinstripe, a defensive uniform, not my style, too crisp, too corporate, but it made me look more polished than I felt. There's a certain kind of armor that comes with good fabric and clean lines, but underneath I felt hollowed out, like someone had scraped me clean and just left the skin. The event was held in a building I used to own a third of, years ago, before it got bought out by a hedge fund and turned into a playground for the elite. The kind of place where every corner has curated lighting and an arrangement of succulents like someone hand-selected each one to whisper, "You made it." I hadn't walked through those doors since Olivia and I had our last big fight, the one where she told me, "You don't build anything, you just throw money at it and hope it sticks." I still hear that line when I'm brushing my teeth sometimes. I don't know why that night came to mind when I stepped into the lobby, but there it was, like a bruise under the skin I'd forgotten about. The air inside buzzed with wealth, not the loud kind, not Vegas or new money, but old, manicured San Francisco wealth. The kind that doesn't have to shout because it owns the building. People hovered in little clusters, swirling glasses of Pinot Noir and speaking in that practiced, performative calm that only the extremely rich or extremely numb seem to master. I spotted Olivia before she saw me. She was standing near the balcony, her body angled toward the skyline like it was an audience. She wore black, always black, sharp lines, open collar, no jewelry. She never needed adornment, her presence was enough. She had that stillness about her, like a painting that dares you to look away first. It hit me harder than I expected, just the sight of her. Like time collapsed for a second and I was 31 again, watching her pace barefoot in our apartment as she pitched me some bold idea, her hair falling in her face, eyes bright with the kind of certainty I could never fake. She used to believe I could do anything before she started believing I should have done more. Sam stood beside her, tall and pressed. He looked like someone who never lost his luggage or missed a reservation, that kind of man. His hand rested lightly on the small of her back, possessive, subtle. I felt my jaw tighten just slightly. I could already feel the humiliation hovering around the edges like the shadow of a storm waiting to drop. I tried to avoid them, swerved left, made small talk with some fintech guy who'd pivoted from crypto to AI like he was changing socks. But then I heard it, Olivia's voice, low and amused, right behind me. "Still allergic to small talk," she said. I turned, her smile was polite, almost clinical, the kind she wore when she was tolerating something for optics. "I was just telling Sam how you used to sneak out of events like these through the service elevator," she added, sipping her wine. Sam chuckled. "Ah, the rebel billionaire," he said, eyes flicking over me like I was an antique he didn't see the value in. "So, what are you working on now? Still investing, or?" The pause was deliberate, that weightless, casual cruelty people like him are so good at. It's not what they say, it's what they don't have to say out loud. "Between ventures," I replied. He laughed, just loud enough, just long enough. "Ah, that phase," he said, with that little smirk that made me want to break something. "Must be nice, some of us are still grinding." Olivia didn't say anything, just looked at me, that unreadable look she's perfected, equal parts nostalgia and detachment. Like I was someone she used to know in another life and now we just smiled at each other across fault lines. I should have walked away, said something neutral, but I didn't. I stayed, let it simmer. Let the weight of their judgment seep into my skin like cold rain. I thought I was over her. I thought I could handle being around her. But there was something about the way they stood together, perfectly aligned, like I was the glitch in the picture. That silence, the one after Sam's joke, it pressed against my ears like static. A few people around us looked over, then quickly looked away. That's the thing about rich people. They hate scenes, but they live for the tension. They feed on it like oxygen. I nodded once, gave a tight smile, and turned away. Found the nearest drink, downed it, something bitter and expensive. I don't even remember what it was, just that it burned going down and made me feel briefly alive. The rest of the night blurred. I wandered, avoided eye contact, let the noise wash over me. Old colleagues, ex-friends, people I made rich once who now barely looked in my direction. I used to own rooms like this. Now I was a curiosity, a relic. I left before dessert, slipped out through a back stairwell like I always used to, and drove home in silence. No music, just the hum of the car and the echo of my heartbeat in my ears. When I got back to my apartment, all glass and silence and emptiness, I didn't turn on the lights. I just stood by the window, staring out over the city. The skyline looked like a lie that night. All those gleaming buildings, all those promises of what success is supposed to feel like. And I felt it, not anger, not grief, something in between, a weariness, a sharp, slicing ache in the middle of my chest, like the edge of something old and rusted had finally broken off inside me. I logged into the portal, my investment dashboard. It's not flashy, just numbers, charts, a list of holdings, but it's the most honest thing in my life. You can't gaslight a spreadsheet. There it was, Valerie Q, Olivia's firm, the one I helped seed back when it was just her, a deck and a dream. $112 million of my money sat there, quiet, loyal, a ghost of faith I didn't even realize I'd kept. I hovered over the divest button. My hand trembled, not from hesitation, but from some deep, exhausted place that just wanted it to be over. I didn't think, I just clicked. Confirm. A few seconds later, the screen updated. The money was gone, moved, disconnected. And I was alone again, not the performative kind, not the curated solitude of penthouses and private cars, but real alone, no audience, no legacy. Just me. And the faint, bitter taste of freedom. It didn't feel like revenge, not at first. It felt like standing in the middle of a room I didn't realize was burning until I opened a window and breathed in for the first time. But the silence afterward was deafening. I thought I'd sleep better, that the weight would lift, but I just lay on my back staring at the ceiling, hearing the small clicks and hums of the apartment like it was alive, like it was mocking me. The soft whir of the fridge, the tap of the heating duct settling, everything too quiet, everything too clean. This place was never meant to be lived in. It was designed to impress, to perform. Even the walls felt like they were waiting for an audience. My phone buzzed the next morning before I'd even made coffee. "You're better than this." No greeting, no name, just that. Olivia, of course. The worst part was how well she still knew me, knew how to twist the knife without shouting. She knew I'd see it, read it 5 times, try to feel either guilt or pride, and end up just empty. I stared at it for a long time, didn't write back. What was there to say? I didn't want to justify it. I didn't want to play chess with her anymore, that cold, elegant game we used to mistake for intimacy. I'd spent years trying to win her approval, even after the love wore off, even after the divorce. I kept showing up like some loyal dog, hoping she'd notice how well I'd healed. But all she ever noticed was that I wasn't bleeding anymore. That day was a blur. I didn't eat, just walked. Down Market Street, through the neighborhoods that used to feel like mine, where I could point at buildings and say, I helped build that. Now they felt like museums of someone else's success, plaques with names I didn't recognize anymore. It was cold, windy, that kind of Bay Area chill that cuts sideways and seeps under your coat. I didn't bother zipping it up, just walked until my hands were numb and my knees ached. There's a bar on Valencia I used to go to with Olivia before things got serious, before we became the kind of couple people took seriously. Back when we used to drink cheap mezcal and talk about how we were going to remake the world. It's closed now, empty windows, for lease sign crooked in the glass. Another ghost. I found myself standing outside it, staring like it might suddenly flicker back to life. Like I might hear her laugh again, that low, knowing laugh she had when she thought I was being dramatic. She used to say, "You feel everything like it's life or death. That's why you're good at what you do." Maybe she was right. Maybe that's why everything that isn't life or death now feels like static, like filler. When I got back to the apartment, there were already calls coming in. My financial advisor, a few fund managers, 2 board members from Valerie Q. They all wanted to know the same thing. Is this personal or strategic? Like I knew the difference anymore. I didn't answer any of them, just watched the notifications pile up like trash in a corner I didn't want to deal with. That night I made spaghetti and burned the garlic. I used to cook all the time. Olivia hated it, said I was too messy, that the kitchen looked like a crime scene after. But there was something grounding about it. Cutting, stirring, tasting, messing something up and eating it anyway. No boardroom, no pitch, just fire and hunger. I ate it standing over the sink. I didn't even bother with a plate. I started sleeping on the floor that week. Told myself it was for my back, but really it just felt more honest. There was something false about the bed, all Egyptian cotton and memory foam, like it belonged to someone I was pretending to be. The floor made me feel like I'd stripped something away, like maybe I was closer to some real version of myself that didn't care about optics. I watched a lot of old movies, noir stuff, men in suits losing everything, black and white shadows swallowing them whole. I related to the bleakness more than I should have. There was something comforting about characters who knew they were already doomed, who didn't try to fix it, just tried to make it to the end with some shred of dignity. The press got hold of the story within 3 days. High-profile investor divests from rising fintech star Valerie Q. Whispers of personal vendetta behind massive capital withdrawal. Power move or petty play, industry divided over investors' sudden exit. No names, but anyone paying attention could fill in the blanks. I didn't care about the gossip. What bothered me was how many people called pretending they cared. "Hey man, just checking in, saw the news. Wild stuff, you good?" You good? The laziest question in the world, as if I even knew what good looked like anymore. I ghosted most of them. Some I answered with one word, some I let ring. There was one guy, Caleb, a junior analyst I'd mentored years ago. He texted me something simple. "They'll all forget about this in a month. You'll still be here. That's what matters." I didn't reply, but I reread that one more than I care to admit. I saw a therapist once, halfway through that second week. Olivia used to beg me to try therapy, but I always said, "What's the point? I already know what's wrong with me." That was the kind of thing I used to say when I wanted to sound self-aware but really just wanted to stay broken. The therapist was young, probably younger than me. She had books on her shelves with titles like The Body Keeps the Score and Radical Acceptance. She asked about my childhood, about Olivia, about the decision to pull out of the firm. I told her I did it because I was tired, that I didn't want to hold on to things out of nostalgia anymore, that sometimes the only power you have left is to walk away. She asked how it felt. I said like someone cut off my arm. She wrote something down. I never went back. It happened in the kind of moment that doesn't feel like anything until later. No thunderclap, no swell of music, just a regular Thursday. I had convinced myself I was fine or close enough to it. The days were quieter and I told myself that meant progress. I walked, I slept badly, I cooked without setting off the fire alarm. I even started reading again, actual books, not summaries or tech blogs. I was almost convincing myself that all this silence was healing and not just echo. And then I saw her. Ferry building, just before noon. I'd gone in to grab oysters and sourdough, something small and briny to remind me that I had a body that needed feeding. I wasn't even thinking, just trying to do the next right thing. Keep moving, don't drown in your own head, don't look back. But there she was, Olivia. Black coat, hair pulled back, clean and severe. She always looked like someone had pressed her into reality with precision. She was with Sam, of course. He was pointing at something in the distance. She was half listening. He had that same posture he always had around her, like he was guarding something expensive, like she was a prize he wanted everyone to notice he had won. She saw me first. I knew because her mouth moved into that tight line she did when she was choosing between speaking or pretending I didn't exist. She chose the first. "Hey," she said, stepping forward, leaving Sam behind like she always left people behind when she wanted control of the conversation. "You've been ignoring my messages." I blinked at her. It felt like watching a memory in real time. My body tensed before I even knew what emotion was coming. "You really think money's the only language I understand?" she asked, voice low and clipped like we were on a stage and she was performing calm. "I didn't do it for you," I said, maybe too fast, maybe too loud. "You just happened to be standing where I stopped caring." She didn't flinch, she just tilted her head, studied me like I was a specimen in a lab. "You hurt a lot of people, real people, not just me," she said. I felt the rage rise then, not fury, not fire, but the deep, old kind, the kind that has sediment in it. That's been sitting for years undisturbed until someone shakes the bottle. "Don't talk to me about real people," I said. "You live in a high-rise above your conscience." She narrowed her eyes. "This wasn't about the company, was it? You just wanted to punish me because I moved on, because I didn't fall apart without you." And there it was. The narrative she needed, the version where I was small and bitter and still orbiting her, where she was the sun and I was just some sad moon burning up in the gravity she thought she still had. But I didn't feel bitter. I felt clear. "I didn't do it to hurt you," I said. "I did it because I finally realized I'd been feeding something that never gave anything back. I let you convince me for years that I was only valuable when I was useful, and I'm done being useful to people who look at me like I'm a relic." That landed. I saw it, a flicker in her jaw, her eyes, not guilt, not even regret, just impact, like I'd knocked something loose in her script and she didn't know her next line. Sam came over then. His timing always sucked. "Everything okay?" he asked, like a bouncer who just noticed trouble at the velvet rope. "We're fine," she said quickly, but her voice had lost its smoothness. He looked at me with that same patronizing smirk from the gala. I could almost see the thoughts behind it. Man, she really upgraded. I smiled at him, not a real smile. The kind that says you have no idea what she took from me to become this version you get to show off. "We're done," I said. "Have a good life." And I walked away. It wasn't cinematic, no swelling violins, no collapsing to my knees, just footsteps, steady, solid, mine. The strangest thing was how quiet my mind was afterward. No echo, no self-recrimination, no rerunning the moment like a courtroom cross-examination. I'd spent so many years wondering what I'd say if I saw her again, what kind of armor I'd need to wear. Turns out I didn't need armor. I just needed to stop carrying the version of myself she'd built, the one that was always lacking, always apologizing, always one step behind her ambitions. I didn't cry, not then, but later at home, sitting on the floor with a bowl of rice and eggs, I felt something move. Not sadness, not quite relief. Grief maybe, not for her. But for the years I spent thinking that being enough for her would eventually feel like being enough for me. I thought about all the dinners we had where I lied and said I liked the people she dragged me around. Thought about all the little compromises I made so I wouldn't seem like the emotional one. Thought about the first time I realized she had stopped listening to me in meetings, that I had become a background character in her rise, and how long I stayed anyway. I went to bed early that night. No whiskey, no phone, no distractions. I just laid there in the dark and let myself feel like a person again, a man who made a choice, not a mistake. It wasn't healing, not yet. But it felt like a start. It's strange how the quiet creeps back in. Not the silence of loneliness, I've had that kind for years, dressed up as ambition, as discipline. No, this quiet is different. It's softer, like a dog that finally stops barking once it's sure the danger's gone. I never realized how loud everything had been until I stopped trying to prove I wasn't losing. I haven't spoken to Olivia since the ferry building. I don't think I ever will again. There's nothing left between us now, not even anger. Just the pale shape of a life we thought we were building, a ghost blueprint that doesn't belong to either of us anymore. I pulled out of all the old investments, not just Valerie Q, everything that was tied to who I used to be. I let the portfolio sit quiet for a while like a wound that needed air. And then slowly I started moving money into things that didn't need to win headlines. Food security, women-run micro startups overseas, quiet, gritty projects run by people who still had the fire I lost somewhere along the way. The returns are small, measured in lives, not percentages, but it feels honest, clean. I moved, too, out of the penthouse, out of the neighborhood where every corner had a version of me in a better suit, pretending to enjoy things. Now I live in a small house near Half Moon Bay, just 2 bedrooms and a porch that faces the water. The kind of place where wind and salt get into everything, where you can hear birds instead of sirens. I let the sea do most of the talking these days. I don't miss the view. The city's skyline always felt like a dare anyway, a glittering reminder that I hadn't done enough, hadn't made enough, hadn't been enough. Out here, the ocean doesn't care about your resume. It just keeps moving, crashing, receding, starting over. I've started building things with my hands, badly. Crooked tables, uneven shelves, a chair that wobbles when you breathe near it, but I like it. There's a kind of intimacy in failure when no one's watching. I've got splinters in places I didn't know could ache, but I sleep better, not longer, but deeper. Like my body is finally catching up to something my mind's been chasing for years. There's a woman at the farmer's market I talk to sometimes. Her name's June. She sells bread and honey and wears a straw hat that always tilts to one side. She never asks me what I do, just tells me about her bees, about the way flour behaves differently depending on the weather. Sometimes we sit by the water and just eat in silence. She once told me, "You don't talk like someone who lives alone." I asked her what that meant. She said, "You still listen." I haven't invited her over yet. I don't know what this is or if it needs a name. I just know it feels easy, like nothing's expected of me except presence. And maybe that's enough for now. Some nights the memories still crawl in. I see Olivia in the hallway of our old apartment, barefoot, furious, brilliant. I hear her say, "You're never where I need you to be." I hear myself say, "I'm doing the best I can," and the silence that followed. That aching, irreversible silence that told me the story had already ended, even if we hadn't signed the paperwork yet. But I don't dwell anymore. I don't edit the past, trying to make myself the hero. I think that's what healing really is, not pretending it didn't hurt, but stopping the urge to make it make sense. I keep a notebook now, just small things, thoughts that don't need to become anything. Lines like, "Today the fog didn't lift until noon," or "June said the bees are calmer when she hums." It's not a journal, it's not therapy, it's just evidence that I'm here, that this life is happening, even if no one's watching. Sometimes I look at my hands and think about how much of my life was spent trying to make them hold more. More money, more deals, more validation. Now I just want to know what they can make without breaking. I got an email from one of the Valerie Q board members last week. A polite update, no hard feelings. Olivia's stepping down, taking time to recalibrate. Whatever that means. Maybe she's unraveling, or maybe she's evolving. I don't know, I don't care. She's someone else's now, or maybe finally just her own. There was a time I would have felt smug reading that, vindicated, but now it just made me tired, like watching a stranger bleed and remembering the shape of your own scars. I almost replied, almost said, "Tell her I hope she finds peace," but I didn't, because she doesn't need to hear it, and I don't need to say it to mean it. Peace doesn't come with a bang, it doesn't announce itself. It just arrives one small moment at a time. You find it in the way the light falls across the floor in the morning, in the sound of your own breath, steady and unashamed, in the knowledge that no one is coming to rescue you and that you don't need to be rescued anymore. I don't know what comes next. I don't have a 5-year plan or an exit strategy. I just know this. I am no longer holding my life like a business pitch. I am no longer building someone else's empire just to be allowed inside. I am here. I am enough. And I am starting over not as punishment, but as permission. That is what the quiet gave me. Not answers, just space. To feel, to rebuild, to be. And for the first time in a long, long time, that feels like winning.